All right. Do we have any last-minute questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, or fears going into this session of Dungeon and Dragu?
No.
Not really.
No.
Without having webcams on, you will have to interrupt me. And I know absolutely none of you are comfortable with that, so you're going to have to figure out some kind of trigger word, like maybe lettuce or a clappy sound. So that the little green border around your image shows me that you're trying to talk.
Mm-hmm.
What are your character names? Jasmine.
Hold up. I'm not typing in tiefling names, I promise. I'm so sorry. Can we get back to me?
I doubt anyone else is ready, but Nando.
Yeah.
He's gonna go with something
Can I just go with Omega?
iconic. Yeah, there we go.
Omega. Dolly.
Can we circle back?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Jasmine. Circle back. Dolly. Circle back. Jasmine.
So, never mind. I'll name her Joy, because tieflings have weird names.
Joy.
What a weird
Omega.
fucking name.
Dolly, if you start your name with a Y, you could have Joy as the party name.
Hey!
Yasmin.
Wow.
We're going to stick away from that because I don't want it to confuse Jasmine. We're already doing
Okay.
that.
I'm stupid. I'm just kidding.
And it doesn't have to start with a Y. I was just being dumb.
Yoink.
My
What kind of person is your tiefling?
like lineman?
I'm
or-
asking Dolly.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
It's all good.
Get fucked, Jasmine.
Shut the fuck up, mother.
Okay.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Are they gentle? Are they suspicious? Are they aggressive? Do they crack jokes? Are they super serious? Just how would you describe them?
I would describe them as cautious, observant, and kind.
So, a lot of tieflings have a name given to them from their lineage, like whatever their parents named them. But they often take words that associate with themselves, like justice or kindness or joy, like Jasmine said. Cautious is not a bad tiefling name if you wanted to go with that. Or you could come up with any human, elven, any other kind of name depending on who your parents are. Or you can just type in tiefling name generator, go to fantasy name generator, and find one that tickles your fancy.
I like cautious.
Cautious. That works for me. So I tend to DM as though we were watching a movie. Okay? So there are going to be moments that your characters may not see something, and I'll describe it for you, the players. And most of the time, I'll try to make that very clear, but if you're not sure, feel free to ask. It's not that big of a deal. Also, I will describe the placement of the camera, because it kind of makes sense in my own head, and I want to give that feeling of cinematography and suspense for each of you. And I think that it kind of helps to do that, like the camera is facing his face and swivels around to his shoulder and shows that he's staring at you, sort of thing. If that gets troublesome and hard to navigate, let me know and I'll cut way back on it. Past that, we're just going to jump straight into things. You have all been sent a letter by a close friend of yours. Maybe you've done business with them in the past. Maybe you've known them your whole life. They could be friends of your family, or they could have helped you out of a tight spot previously. This person writes in their letter that their son, their eldest son, Halleck, Hallak, has been kidnapped while traveling abroad. Word has reached Ulmer, this friend of yours, this longtime friend, that his son is being held for ransom in the amount of 30,000 gold pieces. Ulmer, your friend and benefactor, is of an opulent nature. He has his hands in many industries in this region, and he's very, very wealthy. But in this letter, he pours his heart out to you that due to inclement weather recently, trade agreements gone awry, and setback after setback, including the loss of his son, who ran the family business, Ulmer is already facing bankruptcy. He doesn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. He's barely keeping his head above water. And so he has sent this message to each of you, pleading that you will help him find his son and return him safely. Each of you, in your past, have had close, maybe even intimate relationships with Halleck, this person who has went missing, this half-elven nobleman with this clean, crystal-clear blue eyes, delicate features, and a gentle, warm heart. Halleck has very few enemies in the world, but many, many friends. I would like each of you to tell me how you have known Halleck in the past. Did Halleck hire you for some business and the two of you became friends? Did you meet on the road? Were you ex-lovers? Are you related? Just whatever kind of floats your fancy. This person who has been abducted and needs your assistance, how do you know them? Jasmine?
Hi. Is he, like, the adventurous type, did you say?
He travels abroad very often and meets a lot of interesting people.
I'd like to think we met on the road somewhere, maybe had, like, a common goal, linked up, got that goal done, went our separate ways, but we were good friends.
I would say that Halleck is the sort of individual, while traveling, he writes a lot of letters and sends them, missives, to the people that have impacted his life previously. So over the years since you've met him, he's probably sent you 5 or 6 letters, just touching base, asking how you're doing, and telling of his grand adventures in the north and the south. Nando, tell me, how does Omega know Halleck?
We grew up, neighbors. We were neighbors, and we'd like to play games together as kids.
Were your parents very wealthy, or was it more of a him going slumming sort of thing to hang out with you?
No, my parents were not wealthy at all.
So the fact that his father is reaching out to you, it was something of a thorn in his side when you were a child, to have his son mingle with you. But now that you've made your way in the world as an adventuring sort, having him reach out and be so open and honest with you probably is a big deal to Omega.
Yeah.
Dolly, how does Cautious know Halleck and his father?
I think parents died when I was younger, and he found me alone in the house, and I didn't know what to do, and he helped me figure it out, and eventually took me to a priest who helped raise me for the rest of my life. And he helped me find that person to protect me, which is how I became a cleric.
Halleck is a half-elf, and for those of you unaware, they live considerably longer than humans. Not as long as elves, though. But being 120 or 130 years old is not so uncommon for half-elves. So, finding you early in your life and kind of leading you down this destined path, it probably opens your eyes to the tricks that fate plays sometimes. And you've probably heard from him the same as Joy has several times through the years, checking up on you, and you have a sneaking suspicion through your years growing up as part of this temple that your way was made. Everything that you required was already paid for by the temple. And there's a sneaking suspicion in your mind that it was probably Halleck that paid for such things. I imagine that that would leave kind of a taste of debt in your mouth. Ermer has beseeched you all with promises of payment, favors, or your goodwill, speaking to each of your pasts with Halleck to try and convince you to go on this quest. And along with the letter is a handwritten note that comes with it. Speaking of this cult, the things that he has found out so far, he knows that they are positioned on the mysterious Heathbourne Island. He has been told to acquire these 30,000 gold pieces and send them through courier to Heathbourne Island within the month. And should he not, his son will be left at sea. Each of you have found out through your own efforts that Heathbourne Island is actually very close to a metropolis called Vunlar. The city of Vunlar only took you 13 days to get to, and it's not a very hospitable place. It's a city teeming with people and organizations all kind of vying for power, because religion is outlawed here. Cautious even had to take off her vestments and hide her holy symbol to get into the city. You were searched even to see if any such thing was on your person. Religion of any sort here is punishable by jail or execution, which leads to a very heavy, dour presentation to this Gothic city, dripping with people who are aimless in what they want in their life and how to get it. Without the teachings of the gods and the leadership of priests and prayer, most people fall on dark and sinister times. The city is not evil, but it's almost as if it's without morals. You make your way or you die in a gutter, and people don't fear either way. You speak to the people in this city for an additional 5 days. 18 days total, the three of you have traveled to get here. You have not met each other yet, but in your askings of the city about this cult and about Heathbourne Island, you have crossed paths with one another when you learn of the children of the Watchful Lady, the cult that has taken responsibility for this kidnapping, and many, many others. The city of Vunlar has had multiple nobles go missing in the past years, to the point where adventurers has poured into the city to make fortunes guarding people as bodyguards and sellswords. You bust shoulders with people through the city that you've probably met on the road, each of them caring for these nobles to make sure that they haven't been threatened or won't be kidnapped or extorted. The whole city has that air of impending doom about it. The idea that one's children are not safe. It doesn't sit well with anyone, even nobility, even careless nobility that call this city home. Our story begins when the three of you see one another for the second time, arrive at the Vunlar docks. You are supposed to be boarding a ship. This ship has come to take on passengers, wayward souls, and supplies, and return to Heathbourne Island. In front of you, probably a queue of 50 people waiting to board these massive three-masted sloops that are traveling out to Heathbourne Island. People are standing in line with what few possessions they deem to bring with them to their new life, and each of them, you see, is either carrying, reading, or carefully storing a book. Others have tickets in their hand, all of them written on parchment with various seals about them, sometimes wax stamps, sometimes stamped in ink, but the seals all seem the same. And I would like the three of you to please make me a perception check. You will roll a d20, and you will add your perception skill.
Did you ever get the dice thing, or did you add like a dice thing to the chat, like a chat?
I did. Well, I'm gonna ring up another one.
I can just look up mine.
Yeah. Do. Joy. What did Joy get for her perception check?
13.
Cautious. What did you get?
I got 11.
And Omega?
Got 11.
11?
Mm-hmm.
Joy, you are the only one to notice that Cautious's boarding pass for this ship, looks to be a forgery. The seals along the bottom, they don't match the ones that people are carrying. They don't match anything that you see. It's like this was forged purposefully. It's so similar in so many regards, but it doesn't look quite right. At first, you don't think much of it, but when you see that some of the passengers trying to board the ship are escorted away after having their boarding pass checked, it's starting to dawn on you that perhaps Cautious may have been set up in some way. And you know that this pass is not right.
Oh no. We're all standing, like, next to each other, right?
You are. You're congregated near the entrance of these docks, close quarters and surrounded on all sides by massively tall buildings. Gargoyles kind of stare down at you with their blank expressions. And there are people everywhere, 50 or 60 crammed into this one city block, small dock on the edge of Vunlar. These cultists, they look like normal people, farmers, masons, that sort of thing. Most of them have these smooth, heavy cudgels at their side. Weapons are frowned upon here, but you can get passes to carry them and all that kind of stuff, which you've all already done. But you see that there are many, many downtrodden people here. There's a man standing right next to you, actually, who pushes up his wireframe spectacles onto his nose and is looking down at a piece of paper that is drenched in water, and all of the ink is kind of smeared around on it. It seems to be a letter maybe from home, and you can see that he's trying to hold back tears as he's reading this letter maybe for the 1,000th time. And that seems to be how people feel in this entire congregation, as though they're not leaving for greener pastures. They're just stepping out of a fire and into a place that is a little less hot.
Oh. I would like to point at Cautious and be like, "Hey, your papers here don't look like everybody else's. Is there a reason for that?"
Dolly, can you describe Cautious to us? What she looks like, any of her outside features that your companions can pick up on?
Yeah. She has very dark, long hair that is straight and kind of hits around the hips area, and pale purple skin. And she wears kind of plain clothes so that no one will really look at her twice. Just whatever is kind of popular, I guess. And a very slim tail.
Jasmine, what does Joy look like, these two tieflings finally taking notice of one another?
She has two horns that are like kind of like they like curl to the back, I guess. She has like long, dark, black hair, kind of wavy, you know. She has red eyes, reddish skin tone, very pretty to look at. She has kind of like finer clothing, not like too like extravagant or anything, but I would assume like, you know, doing a little hand wave. I don't have words. She doesn't look like a commoner.
So she has some noble flair to her attire. I like that.
Yes.
Cautious, this person who you've heard through reputation to be Joy, a fellow tiefling, has told you that your past seems to be a forgery.
Do I know about it being a forgery?
This is the first you've heard of that.
Okay.
Each of you has probably slipped some coin and or slipped some pockets to acquire these passes to get on this ship. You're trying to keep yourselves under the radar at this point and just follow suit with these groups of people. But you have not heard anything about forgeries. But when Joy points it out, you can see from the various ones, including Joy's, that they do not look similar. There's subtle differences to each of the seals across the bottom of the page that yours do not match either of your companions.
Is there a way to know if I got mine, like paid for mine, in a different area or place?
You would know that intrinsically, because you had to pay for it.
Okay.
Surveying around, you see multiples, 10, 15 that you can look at from here, and of those, maybe only one looks like yours. The rest look identical to your two companions. At the front of the line, waiting to board the ship, you see one of these thick-necked human cultists pulls up a pass and nods his head at his fellows. And the person who had the pass is grabbed. And they say, No! I don't know! What are you doing? Let me go! As they're kind of dragged away and boarded onto another, smaller ship. It's alright, you'll get there. Just putting you on a different ship, one of the men says as they drag him aboard. Everyone seems to be terrified to be pulled out of line for some reason, though none of the people who are running the show seem all that upset about anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I would start kind of panicking, right? Because I'm seeing these people get carted away. It feels like the people who are getting taken know more than me. Like they know what that means.
Looking around, you see a great many people are still holding on to these books. And since you're panicked, I imagine you'd be trying to grab onto anything that you can maybe say or do. You see that the books all seem to be identically hand-copied and bound in the same thick leather. And they're called The Teachings of the Watchful Lady. The letters are all stamped into the leather on the front of each of these books. Some people are reading it and muttering to themselves. Others are holding it against their chest, and still others are wrapping it delicately in waterproof cloth and storing it in their bags. In front of you, you see another adventurer who has been asking questions within the city, this half-elven individual, Omega. Nando, can you tell us what Omega looks like?
He's tall. Opposite of me. But yes, tall. He basically only wears black. And he has some tattoos. He has dark hair. And he's very, very pale.
So, right behind you, Omega, you see these two tieflings are kind of chittering at one another and chatting. And one of them, this more scholarly-looking tiefling, has this absolute look of terror and panic across her face.
Wait, I'm sorry, could you repeat that real quick? I'm sorry.
Two tieflings are behind you, and one of them looks to be extremely panicked. Jasmine, typing your ass off. Mute yourself. How dare you?
Sorry.
Yeah, tell her. Okay, so, wait, can I go back real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, are we still playing, like, the classes that we made up before, or is this, like, completely new? Like,
This is the same class as you made before.
okay, so I'm a rogue and an elf.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a rogue and an elf. Okay, can I recreate how I'm looking then?
Sure.
Okay, so I have, like, light blue skin. Long, like, darker blue hair. Not, like, super long, but, like, down on, like, my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And he is tall, again. And he has, like, just a bit of ragged clothing, but it's, like, just worn. It's not, like, you know, it's that.
Not cheap, just well used.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
What does Omega smell like?
Smells like?
Mm-hmm.
He actually is a neat freak, so he'd make sure to keep, like, everything clean. But he just, yeah. He likes to smell good. So he smells like cherries.
The subtle smell of soap and cherries wafts off of this elven person.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yes.
You see the tiefling right behind you is looking around kind of panically eyes wide, like a dog looking for something in the brush nearby. And the other looks a little concerned, kind of panicked, and the two of them seem to be talking in hushed tones. You could easily eavesdrop on their conversation should you wish.
I do wish.
You hear them kind of whisperedly and hurriedly talking about a forgery, some kind of fake ticket, and you kind of put two and two together that you assume fake tickets are probably getting people pulled out of line. And even now, people are streaming onto the ship very quickly. Their passes are being checked, and they're either being put on board or turned away towards a second ship that's nearby. And one of them that's being turned away refuses and tries to throw his blanket and his clothes that are put into a small bag. This seems to be an elven man himself. tries to throw his things aboard the ship. It says, no, I'm going, don't think. And he gets bludgeoned on the back of the head with this oak cudgel. And as he kind of falls to one knee and blood streams through his hair, the person that hit him says, you did, you fucking toad, and hits him again and drops him to the ground unconscious. Drag him aboard. And they drag him across the cobbles unceremoniously to the other ship.
And you're asking what I'm doing in this time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I see all this going on, and I hear their conversation. So I walk up towards them, pretending like I didn't just like eavesdrop on them, so because I don't want to sound rude. So, you know, I don't want to come off as, you know, rude and nosy. Even though, yeah. And I say, oh, you little thing, what's the problem? What seems to be the problem here, madam?
I'm gonna... Why should I trust you with my problem?
Because my character is very attractive, so you feel comfortable talking to me.
This blue-haired, like gently blue skin-toned elven man approaches you, and Cautious can already tell who this person is through reputation here in the city. This kind of unstoppable force of individual. And you probably know that they have a reputation as an adventurer themselves. Most of the other people here are lowborn farmers and masons and stuff like that. If there was anyone here you could trust, it would be the two people next to you, Cautious.
Okay. I think I kind of squint at him for a second, and then I say, I think somebody has given me a forged pass, and I can't get on the ship, but I need to catch it.
Is it possible to, like, sneak her on? You know, because I'm sneaky.
Why don't you roll me an insight check?
Mm-hmm. A D20 again?
Mm-hmm.
I got a 9.
What were you saying, Jasmine?
I was pulling up my spells, and I chose Distort Value for one of them. Is there a way I can change her past to look more real?
So what a spell like Distort Value would do is make all of the qualities of the pass change. So it would look like better paper, better ink, more well-made, but it would still be a forgery.
I don't think they'll know. I mean, if it's forged anyway.
Omega, with a 9, you are not really sure how far these people would go, like these cultists here that are filtering people onto the ship. You're not really sure how far that they would go if you were to push matters and try to sneak someone aboard. You're not really sure how well that would turn out, but even with a 9, you know the people around you are pushovers and emaciated, unhappy, lowly, tired, exhausted in some instances. You're under the impression you could probably swap Cautious's pass with someone else's with a sleight of hand check, or maybe even just give some gold for someone else's pass. These people look like some of them haven't eaten in days, let alone would turn away gold or silver.
I think I'd rather just steal one.
Alright. So why don't you roll me a sleight of hand check, please? Roll high.
Oh boy.
I got a 14.
14 total?
Oh, I gotta add the thing, right?
You roll your d20 and then you add your sleight of hand underneath your skills.
Jet, do I have that? I don't have the info up. I'm sorry.
You have a +5 to sleight of hand. It's on the left side of your sheet. It's just to the right of where you see charisma.
Okay, so I have a 19 total.
19 total, that's very good. Far too good for these people. Joy, you see this elven man who has approached and asked how to help, kind of gently tug this forged document out of Cautious's hand. And he turns to that man that you saw a moment ago reading the letter from home. Omega bumps into him, making him drop the letter. And as he reaches down to pick it up, he pilfers from this individual's pocket a pass, and then slides the forgery back into that pocket as the man thanks him for picking up his letter. Omega, the man that you have just pickpocketed and swapped passes for, he takes his glasses off and blows on them and then wipes them on his shirt. They're all covered in water. It's been raining for days around here. All of you are probably drenched at this point. And he says, much obliged, thank you. I've nearly worn the paper in two. That's a letter from my wife. He folds it up kind of shakily, and he says, best to put such things behind us now, right, brother? And he smiles. What do you say?
I say, yep, I'm gonna head out.
He nods and he says, through toil and blood, brother. Through toil and blood. And he kind of steps in front of you in this queue so that you can be by your two new forged companions. The three of you are only 5 or 6 people back at this point, as the line is filtering out. There are more pouring in behind you, but several people after Cautious in this line, some of these thick-necked, angry cultists step forward. One of them seems to be a half-orc individual with a large greatsword on his back. He steps in and says, that's all for today. No more. Come back tomorrow. And people are like, no, please. I just want some food. Let me aboard. Things start to deteriorate very rapidly, and people draw their cudgels and their swords and essentially chase most of the people behind you out of the docks forcibly. Next! The man in front of you, Omega, walks forward, reaches into his pocket and fishes out his pass and hands it. He's got this book tucked under his arm, held closely in his armpit, saving it from the water. And he says, here, brother. I can't wait to start my life anew. The cultist opens it, reads, closes it, and nods at his fellows. And 2 men sweep up on either side and grab this man by the arms. And he says, What are you doing? No, I was invited. I was invited by Jack himself. As he's being pulled away on his heels, he's punched in the stomach. He lets out a wheeze and drops the book, drops his things. His things are kicked into the water by one of these cultists that is dragging him. And you see the blankets and parchment, all the things that he brought, probably all of his worldly possessions, sink beneath the inky water here. He's dragged onto the boat, trying muffled to plead his case. Coughing from the blow. Next! It is your turn, Omega.
Andrew, I hope you feel bad.
I say was that very necessary? As I hand them my ticket.
He reads and poignantly does not respond to what you say. He does, however, point to the book at your feet. He says, pick it up. Passes your boarding pass to the person next to him that puts it inside of a slot into a wooden box. Do you pick up the book?
No, I kind of just kick it towards him.
He reaches down, picks up the book, sees that you have kicked it across the watery cobbles, and nods to his fellows. 2 men come over, each of them grab your arms, and begin to escort you onto the second ship. What do you do?
I kill him.
You draw your weapon?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I will warn you, as I told you I would do before, things can devolve very quickly at level 1. Joy, what do you do?
It helps me, right?
Can I stop him?
How would you like to try and stop Omega from, killing himself?
Can I charm person him?
Interesting. Cautious, what do
What
you
does that
do?
mean?
Can I step forward and try to take the book for him?
Now that is an interesting thought. So, Omega kicks this book, clearly prized and coveted by everyone gathered here, across the watery cobbles. Your friend, this tiefling standing right behind you in line, seems to whisper some incantation, some spell, under her breath. How would you like to diffuse the situation by picking up the book? Is there something you say or do in that moment, or do you just pick it up?
I think I see him kick it, and I rush forward and kneel down and pick it up very swiftly and hold it close to my heart like I saw the rest of the people, and protect it from the rain with my head and kind of back up to where I was standing before.
Okay. So, Omega, you need to roll me a wisdom saving throw. That is in the top left portion of your character sheet. You should have a +0 to it, but you are an elf, which means that you have advantage on saving throws against spells that charm you.
Shit.
So you get to roll your d20 2 different times and tell me the higher number. You would add +0 to the roll, so just roll the d20 and tell me what number pops up.
I got an 18.
Joy, you cast the spell trying to diffuse whatever tension is in this strange elf that has accompanied you, and he seems to shrug it off very easily. Cautious, you reverently scoop up this book in front of this cultist. Why don't you roll me a persuasion check to see how well you can sell this, or a performance, if you wish, whichever is higher.
I got 20 total.
Very, very nice. You scoop it up and kind of reverently hold it and shroud it with your hair and your head and hold it against your chest. And you take a few steps back to just behind Omega, this blue elf that you just recently found. The cultist, he furrows his brows a little bit and holds his hand out to you. And he says, "Pass."
I quickly hand him my pass.
He opens it and looks it over. And his eyebrow raises on one side. And he says, "He with you?" and gestures to this elven individual who just helped you.
I nod very quickly and say yes.
"Best keep him in line. Get aboard," he says to the two of you. Omega is released from both of his arms and gently pushed toward the boat, as though they've given you a second chance to make amends with your companion here. You're not really sure where the magic that you just shrugged off came from. It's almost second nature to elves like you. But there's only a few people here you think would even be capable, and the two tieflings are chief among them.
I walk onto the ship. Can I come, like, ask, them if they tried, like, a spell on me or something?
You're almost 100% sure that it was not either the men guarding the ship, the man at the box, or the two men at your arms. It had to be somebody in the crowd behind you. More than likely, either of the tieflings or someone else who's secretly a magic caster.
Okay. So can I just, walk on and just not do anything else?
Yeah.
And I go up to I'll say thank you to, I'm sorry, what's Starly's character's name again?
Cautious.
Cautious, okay. Thank you, Cautious.
The two of you are standing aboard the ship. There are people kind of mingling their way down the stairs below deck, being filtered through by more of these cultists. There's probably 8 aboard the ship. No telling how many are below deck. Just kind of telling people to get down into the hold and keep quiet. You see that they're loading on from here dozens and dozens of goats and cows. Like, so many for the size of this ship. It makes you kind of wonder why they would ever load so many onto this ship this way, especially with people aboard. You have this quiet moment to yourselves to apologize and say thank you. And Joy, your pass is checked. You're given the nod and you are offered onto the ship. You see these two companions of yours standing just on the deck of the ship right next to things, as a cultist kind of comes over and says, "Keep moving, come on, don't clog things up." The three of you find yourselves with a 2-day journey aboard this ship. It is grueling and terrifying in some places. The winter storms here are awful. It is cold. You're all wet and salty with brine on the second day. Are you speaking to any of the passengers or any of the crew aboard this ship during your travel?
I am. I'm talking to people and trying to figure out what happens to the people that are put on the second ship.
What about Joy?
I guess I'd, ask people about where they come from, why do they want to come to this place, and whatnot.
And Omega?
I'm not talking to anyone. I'm just kind of looking at the sky.
Okay. You are left with the ability to go above deck for a few hours each day, but it's almost like people take shifts when they do it. They don't want to get in the way of the crew up there, so anytime there's a storm, you're pretty much relegated to sitting with the livestock in the hold or in this small galley. And when food is served, you're supposed to take your food and go back to your fucking seats elsewhere on the ship. It's not very homey here, Omega. And you see that the ship is well-worn and weathered, like it's made this trip hundreds of times. The crew is also very weathered and unhappy. There is a single man aboard the ship who seems to be the captain, who's incredibly tall and broad, with a flat, kind of square head, this thick-necked, brutish individual who has slate gray skin with tattoos kind of covering him from head to toe. You think that this is maybe a Goliath, a race of mountain-dwelling people. The idea of him being captain of the ship is strange, but you also see that he crosses the deck using the ropes and rigging effortlessly, like a cat, almost. Speaking of cats, Joy, you have actually started something of a budding friendship with one of the women aboard the ship. A gnomish woman who says that her name is Uwu. Uwu. She has a pet cat that is trying desperately to claw its way out of her loving embrace to mingle with the other cats, seemingly wild, aboard the ship. She says, "I cannot believe that I've been given this opportunity. A new life, away from such terrible circumstances, Ubu," she says.
Wow.
Through conversation with her over the course of these 2 days, you're under the impression most of the people on this ship are, as you suspected at the docks, downtrodden farmers and woodworkers, individuals that have lost their jobs, lost their homes. Some of them turned to drink and lost everything that way. Uwu, on the other hand, tells you that she's a devotee of sorts, with her kind of darkish gray hair despite her being younger. This tiny gnomish woman with her large eyes clutching this tabby cat that still yowls to be let go all day and night. "Stop it, Mr. Whiskers," she says. "What brings you to Heathball, Uwu?" she says.
I am looking for a friend.
A friend who's already embraced the teachings of the Watchful Lady? How decadent, she says. Uwu.
Yes.
Is this friend a boy? Uwu? She asked.
Joy has a little blush over her face. Yes, he is a good friend of mine. And she kind of looks away, flushed.
Good friends are hard to come by. Ooh, she says. "No, Mr. Whiskers." The cat still struggles to get out of her cup. She says, "I've not seen you really mingle with most of the overtly religious types on this ship. Are you new to the teachings of the Watchful Lady?"
I am.
Ooh. She blinks her comically long eyelashes and says, "I could tell it. I could see it in your face. You don't have the calm demeanor of one who is assured of their actions. Ooh. Tell me, what is it that you see in the teachings in the first place? It'll help me guide you down the proper path. Ooh."
Do I know the answer to that question?
No more than Jasmine does, no.
Oh, shit. Jasmine doesn't know shit.
Is it the parables and the passages, Ubu? Is it the teachings? Maybe the poems?
Yeah. The teachings.
No, the teachings, she says, and she holds Mr. Whiskers out in front of her with his pooch belly. And she says, "Isn't that right, Mr. Whiskers? Jack is such a powerful force. The moon smiles on him. That's why his name is Jack Moon, I'm sure of it. It was destined, predestined. My favorite passage is through toil and blood. You recall it?"
No, do enlighten me.
What a shame. Hand me your book. I'll show you.
Do I have
You
said
do not.
book? Shit. I think I left it in my
You left it?
I have it. I have it, just not on me at this moment in time.
She says, SMH my head. And she says, hold Mr. Whiskers for me, and hands you this cat.
I will take Mr. Whiskers.
Awesome. Roll me an athletics check to hold on to this cat as it tries to burst free from your grasp.
I have lost my d20.
It wiggles its whole body into a big noodle and tries to squeeze out.
Oh boy. 10.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Mr. Whiskers rolled a 7. You are so lucky. You hold on to the cat for a moment, and she reaches into her bag and pulls out this book, The Teachings of the Watchful Lady. And she says, all children must know their favorite passage at the very least. My favorite is this. And she nuzzles up next to you, like her back against your shoulder, as this cat tries to claw through your clothing. And she says, right here, through toil and blood, all shall prosper. Those who deny the truth should be excised. It's so succinct, so powerful. Woo. She breaks down and starts crying.
I give her a little back rub.
Oh, so you let go of the cat with one hand. Make another athletics check to hold on to Mr. Whiskers.
15.
How dare you? You rolled a 6. He's been off his feet for too long. She takes a moment and kind of situates herself. And she says, Joy, I will admit something to you. I don't know where you come from in the wide, wide world, but I found my way to Heathbourne because I am wanted. Ooh, she says. If I didn't come here, I don't know who would shelter me from the storm, and I would not do well in prison, she surmises. So, no matter what brings you here, Joy, you're welcome. You'll be a child of the Watchful Lady in no time, regardless of how trepidatious you are now. It's just a matter of time.
Thank you.
She
your kind words.
She touches your hand very delicately, and then she grabs Mr. Whiskers' scruff and tucks him painfully between her bosoms and says, I believe I will go and get something to eat. I'll bring you back a roll if they have any remaining. The person next to you that you barely spoken to, they've been sick the whole time. They throw up into a bucket that's already too full of vomit, sloshes out onto the deck.
Yummy.
And she scuttles away. Cautious. You said that you were speaking to people. What exactly would you like to speak to someone about?
I would like to kind of talk to them about the book. Like, I'll walk up to somebody and connect with the books and it's like, oh, yours looks very well taken care of. You must be very devout. They will be honored to have you on their island. And then after they kind of reply and they let their guard down maybe a bit, I would like to start questioning about, did you see the man who was taken onto the other ship and dropped his book? Did do you happen to know where he went or what that ship is?
The person that you have had the most connection with in trying to find out this information is a miner named Burner. And Burner says, "Truth be told, I was never really one for this Watchful Lady thing. My wife was. She heard about it not more than 2 10-day ago. It consumed her, really. But she fell ill. So I promised her that I would come in her stead. May she find peace." He takes a moment and kind of collects himself, and then he says, "I've heard some stories. The people who don't really believe, people who try to buy their way onto Heathbourne Island, that they're sent to another part of the island on that second ship. I don't know why or where, but it does make sense. Otherwise you just turn them back to the city and they try and try again. Maybe they have more to teach them elsewhere. Maybe they don't trust them and they have to prove themselves. I don't know. But he kind of looks at the book and he says, I can't myself read. I don't know the letters and markings. But my wife would always tell me her favorite passage was, even purity itself is impure. Even the most devoted people who come to that island, maybe they're not as devoted as they thought. We just have to trust that they know what we need. Because I know that if I stayed home, I'd live out my days in misery." He kind of puckers his lips, small scars on his face from where rocks and things have hit him. And he says, I know it's a very sour conversation, but I've tried not to hide it from people. I figure it's my only shot at a better life here.
I kind of touch his shoulder and give it an affirming squeeze, and I say, I'm very sorry for your wife. I'm sure she would be very proud to have you stand in place of her. And the passage, even purity itself is impure, is maybe a sign to you that you can't possibly be perfect, and so you trying may be better than the people who already feel like they have it figured out.
He kind of straightens at this conversation and nods delicately. And he says, that is something to consider. Thank you. Now, you've had a unique opportunity, Cautious, to actually read through this book whenever you're not having conversations with people. You find that a lot of the parables and a lot of the teachings here in the teachings of the Watchful Lady, they speak to equality and opportunity. And it also speaks that such things blind people. And the longer you read in the book, the less kind of gracious it sounds, the less enticing and wholesome and sincere, and the more aggressive and combative it is, to the point where at the beginning of the book it suggests that all men have equal chance to prosper as long as they're not under the yoke of their betters, right? But then near the end of the book, it says that those who hold the reins should be slain, or people who try to take what is not theirs should be excised like cancer. Like, all these word choices in the back end of the book seem dangerous and sinister almost to you. Omega, on your last day aboard the ship, you are met by an individual, an elven man, tall, spindly, with charcoal black eyes and charcoal black hair, who, when he approaches you, asks a very singular and effortless question. He says, "Are you what you seem?" And with his other hand, he gesticulates a series of little hand movements that look almost alien to most people, but you know them to be thieves' cant. It is a language of rogues and cut purses. You know that he's signaling for you that if you are of his ilk, if you are a thief or a brigand, to make yourself known. What do you do?
Does this guy come off as hostile? Like,
roll me an insight check.
I got a 17.
A 17, you believe this person may not be hostile toward you, but they do seem sinister, like they're out for themselves. They don't seem to be like the cultists that you see around and the other people packed aboard this ship. They seem like they're out for something, out to maybe gain a leg up in this situation. Probably steal something, maybe something worse. You're not sure.
Okay, so I kind of just look at him and, like, think for a moment to myself. And I kind of, like, weigh my options to deny or come forward. And I eventually I tell him that I am what he thinks I am.
You can return the hand signal of a sort.
Mm-hmm.
He will sit next to you on the bench that you have made your home, and he sits very close and leans towards you a little bit, and he whispers in this kind of double talk, this hidden thieves' language that you share. He whispers to you, essentially, that he is here on a job, and should you be willing to take part, he will cut you in on the gold he's supposed to make. And he's keeping it very vague until he can kind of gauge your interest in this sort of thing.
Well, I think, and as much as I love gold, I feel like I'm going to be more preoccupied with, my first mission at hand. So I kind of just tell him this isn't a good time.
He nods, and he kind of gives you this, like, tap his nose and touch his cheek sort of thing, like, our secret sort of deal in this hidden thieves' language. And then he gives you a delicate little wave with his spindly fingers and says, "If you change your mind, maybe you can find me." And he goes back to his normal position on the ship. Now that you can kind of keep an eye out for him, you barely ever see him. But every once in a while you see him looking at you through the cattle that move around in the bottom of the ship. But he seems to be kind of keeping to himself and reading some novel he brought with him.
Mm-hmm.
When the day concludes and the sun sets, people on deck, the crew here, all tell you to keep quiet. And there are people down here making sure that the cattle and the goats keep quiet as well, feeding them little handfuls of food at a time so that they're continuously busy. On deck of the ship, you hear some of the sailors, "Land." Nothing happens. There's a whoof. "Land." Whoof. As they're probably firing arrows out looking for land in this hazy night. And after about an hour of hearing that constant, repetitive sound, finally someone says, "Land ho! Land ho!" And people below deck start to kind of celebrate in this moment. The smell down here is horrific. People are sick, obviously. A few people have died during the trip and have been cast overboard. The cattle is restless and the goats are as well. Everyone's packed in here far too tightly for comfort. The ship lands. Everyone is escorted off and onto the docks and led almost single file into town in this big procession. The cattle and the goats are left aboard the ship, and the ship immediately sets sail around the island to somewhere else. The island itself juts out of the sea at odd, broken, rocky angles. It looks like almost a mountain with the top cut off, like a plateau, with rocks jutting out in all directions. But you would not expect such a rocky island, not even 5 miles across, to be so full of life. There are trees and vines and grasses, flowers and fruit. There is plant life everywhere, teeming on the entire island, despite it being cold out at sea, a crisp, damning winter. It's warm on the island, almost subtropical. You begin to sweat as soon as you step onto it. The wind of the sea does not cut through the trees. It's very delicate and well kept. It's as though you're inside of a dome of glass, perfectly preserved, to make all of the plants here grow splendidly. Can the three of you please make me a nature check?
$15.
I got a 20.
I got 27.
All three of you, accustomed to keeping an eye out for nature and the natural world, all three of you notice, despite all the plants, you don't see any animals. No squirrels, no birds, no little field mice, no insects, nothing. Just plants. It's very unsettling, actually, how quiet and completely still the forest is as you walk deeper and deeper into the island. Torches are lit and passed out to whoever wants to hold them. People sing jaunty, soothing tunes because they're happy to finally be off the ship. The rocks here are inhospitable and treacherous, but this overgrowth, vines and moss and grass and topsoil, makes everything cushiony and even. A little strangely too comfortable. When you finally get within eyesight of the town, it's very new. There's not a single building here more than 2 years old that you can tell. They're all big and made of wood collected from the island. Everything's fresh and smells of cedar and pine straw. There are quite a few goats and cows here, some chickens here and there, but no natural animal life, no deer, no anything like that. The people kind of stare out at this procession of 50 or so individuals who've made it onto the island, and some of them break into a run and come down to the procession to meet with loved ones and family members. People celebrate. People talk of singing songs by fires and getting comfortable. Eventually, people splinter away from the procession with those who greet them until only 12 of you are left on this march into the very center of the town. A dog, an old wiry-haired dog, kind of sits at the entrance to the stairs of a massive porch leading into this communal log house. This great house that's probably 80 rooms inside of it. It's gargantuan. You can imagine an entire army sleeping inside and having room to spare. And it is the central building of this town. The person who's leading you, one of the cultists that actually funneled you onto the ship in the first place, kind of cries out, "Stop!" And the 12 of you kind of stop walking. You notice that the rest of the town has kind of begun to filter towards this area too, more on the outskirts of the road, away from the 12 of you. And a bell rings. Boom, boom, boom. It rings 11 times. And before you, on the second floor of this massive, massive communal living house, steps a man. Shaved head, with a large scar from his eyebrow around his ear. Very comely, handsome, tall. He says in this thick accent, and when he speaks, you see that he has small tusks on his bottom jaw, maybe a half-orc. "Children," he says, "you have all made it here. You are all home. You will live in this house. You will treat it as your home. You will honor the teachings, and we will meet again tomorrow. You need to rest," he says. "Sleep well." And he turns on his heel and walks back into this room and closes the door to the balcony behind him. At the front door, there is a wood elf. Tall woman, actually. She's nearly 6 feet. Thin and willowy, and she's bristling with swords at her waist. At least 3 with a couple of daggers hanging there as well. Vicious-looking, angular, sharp woman with long braided hair that goes down past her butt. And when she speaks out to all of you, it's less comforting and welcoming. It's sharp and angry. She says, "Each and every fucking one of you, you need to find a room. Find your room, call it your own. If it's already occupied, move to the next. Be in bed in 1 hour. Any later and I'll have you flogged. Clear," she says to the 12 of you. The 3 of you are kind of blending into this crowd. People are surrounding you, and all of them are so excited to please that they just nod and run inside on their own. But what do the 3 of you do? This woman does not seem to be paying any attention now. She said what she wanted to say. She sharply turns and walks away into this huge house.
Is there any way for us to know if the man talking originally is Jack?
You can obviously ask any of the people around, and they will happily say, I think that's him. I think that's Jack. Jack Moon, in the flesh. We met him. Sort of. He said that he'll speak to us tomorrow. Do you think? Nah, I don't think. Well, maybe. We saw him. He's going to be sleeping in here. We're with him. And they're just kind of bubbling about it like they're going to meet a celebrity.
Okay, can I go inside and see if I can find someone who looks kind of familiar and if there's a room near them?
When you walk inside, Cautious, you see some familiar faces. Others have peeled away that you met on the ship, and they're going with, people that are already on the island, maybe brothers, sisters, lovers, family, that sort of thing. The few people who come into this communal house, you see a tall elven man with charcoal black eyes and hair. You see a cautious-looking miner who is actually cutting eyes back at your friend Joy. And the two of them are looking at one another, but you recognize that's the man that you talked about his wife to. And you see your two companions from the docks. The tiefling woman Joy and the elven man Omega. And the three of you, along with 6 or 7 others who are more trepidatious about entering this building, are left to kind of pick over the remains of the rooms that are available. But like I said, there are more than 80. It doesn't seem like maybe 15 or 20 people stay in here other than the 12 of you. So there's plenty of rooms to choose from.
Is there a room free near Burner?
Sure. You can kind of follow Burner as he picks out a room and take the one next to him.
Okay, that's what I want to do.
Joy and Omega, the two of you, are you looking for rooms separate from everyone? Are you looking to bunk next to each other? What are you doing?
I turn around and I see Jasmine following me like a lost puppy.
Okay.
Joy following me like a lost puppy.
Do I notice Cautious from the dock?
Mm-hmm.
Like from where I am?
You see that Cautious is kind of following this heavy-set, thick miner as he finds a room for himself, and Cautious kind of slips into the room next to it. But the three of you can exchange glances to one another before Cautious steps into her bedroom.
I would like to be close to Cautious.
Would you like to be across the hall or adjacent?
Across.
Omega, what about you?
I want to be as far away from everybody as I can.
Sure. You can go up to the 3rd floor. There's nobody up there.
Alright, I'll do that.
Okay.
How long do we have until we're supposed to be sleeping?
An hour.
Can I knock on Burner's door and ask him if I teach him maybe some letters, if he'll explain some of the passages to me, how his wife maybe believed it and knew them to be true?
That's interesting. He'll say yes. You seemed a caring sort, and he doesn't seem to be turned too much away from your devilish appearance. He seems more reserved with other humans, almost. Like, he seems to be more trusting of the three of you, if you had to gauge, than he would be other humans just like him, for some reason. But he will nod and agree, and the two of you can speak for that final hour before the bell rings again and you're all supposed to be in your beds. Anyone else doing anything?
I will swap, spell things and then go to bed.
I think I'm just heading to bed.
So Omega goes up the stairs to the second floor, and then the third. And the third, there aren't even any candles lit in the hallway. No lamps or anything. You have to supply your own light. And you can choose any of the bedrooms up here. There are probably 15 or 20 on the third floor. And there's a small landing where some chairs are set up next to a table with a lamp in the center that's bolted to the table, maybe for reading or studying or something like that. The rooms in the entire place are very humble. Small, maybe 8 feet by 12 feet. Almost like a jail cell, almost. There's a small cot with a feather mattress on it, some blankets, one pillow. There's a pair of leather shoes, like moccasins almost, flat-bottomed, if you want to use those. There's a small writing desk with a single oil lamp, and there is a small wardrobe that you can put whatever you need into, as well as a lockbox underneath the beds. The lockboxes are bolted to the floor, however, so they can't be moved. There are no locks on any of them. Maybe you have to ask, you're not really sure, but the boxes are there. Omega, on the third floor, it is eerily quiet. You hear some speaking for a little bit, and then long before the bell goes off, it gets almost ghostly quiet up here. You hear the gentle creaking of the boards and the roof as the wind blows, but other than that, it is dastardly silent. Cautious and Joy, the two of you have some things to do at the end of the night, kind of as your daily rituals before bed. And Joy, you hear some, like, hisses of pain almost through the wall. It doesn't really trigger any fear in you. It's just more of a weird thing to hear, you know?
Yeah.
But Cautious, when the bell rings, boom, boom, and you leave Bruner's room, you see that everyone has set out glasses, like actual glasses of blood outside their doors. Half full, maybe a quarter pint of blood in each glass. There are only 3 doors in this entire hallway that do not have such glasses in front of them. Yours, Joy's, and Burner's. And if you look kind of behind you, when you come upon this realization, you see that Burner has a cup, this glass, on the table that he has found in the lockbox underneath his bed, and has cut his palm open with a knife and is bleeding into it. As he does so, he says, "Lady, watch over me. Watch over me and mine. Lady, watch over me. Watch over me and mine." Over and over and over again.
Can I check the lockbox and see if I have one as well?
You open your lockbox, and sure enough, there is a glass in there. It is wrapped with cloth, like a white cotton cloth to keep it from breaking.
Can I follow his lead?
Sure.
Okay, I think I want to go to the doorway, and then I cut my palm in the doorway as close as I can to where I saw Joy go inside, and try and make a little bit of noise when I cut my palm to kind of maybe convince her to open her door. And I say maybe a little bit more loud, the chant that I heard Burner say.
So Joy, right outside your door, you kind of hear this, "Watchful Lady, watch over me and mine," from a familiar tiefling voice.
You could have just knocked. I will get up concerned and slowly open the door and like look out.
You see Cautious standing there, glass in one hand, bleeding from a wound in her hand into the glass.
I just kind of stare at her like, "Are you okay?" But I don't say anything. Can I look down the hallway and...
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that Cautious would kind of like gesture her head for you to look, and you see that there are glasses all over. There's probably 15 down here, just in this straight line.
Oof. I'll be like, "Where'd you get that?" And I point at the glass.
I want to kind of shush her to make sure that nobody hears her being confused. And I'll crouch near the bed where she can see me and point under it.
Okay. Can I go to the bed and,
You open the lockbox and you see this white cloth. Inside of it is a glass.
Can I grab my dagger and, do a little stabby stab?
Yeah. Where would you like to stab yourself?
On my palm, I guess.
Okay. Bleed into the glass.
Yum.
Omega, being on the 3rd floor, you do not hear, see, or smell any of this take place. The two of you, however, join Cautious. Eventually, you adequately put blood in this glass, and after the 12th bell has rang, you hear footsteps coming into this place, and one by one the lights are snuffed out as someone goes by and blows out all of the lanterns. If they see you, they tell you to get the fuck back in your rooms. Kind of thing. Very abrupt and angry. And anyone who has a light on in their bedroom, the door is opened without knocking. There is no lock on the doors. The door is opened without locking, and there is a verbal altercation, and they cut the light off and go to bed. The two of you eventually turn your own lights off, go to bed, almost by force if necessary. You have a single window, each of you looking out into the town. The glass is poorly done and frosted, but it lets in just enough moonlight that you can feel the darkness outside, in a sense. Like, the moonlight cuts through the trees and through the window to the point where you're amazed that even that much light got through. Everything seems like it would be darker and more malicious than it is. But you can't escape the feeling of actual comfort here. Even on this thin mattress in this dark, kind of dusty, small room, you feel comfort deep in your bones. Omega.
Yes.
It has been some time since you went to sleep.
Right.
And you
wake. Oh, continue. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and you wake to the sound of chittering and maybe teeth. This sound.
Rat? Is that supposed to be like a rat?
You're not sure.
Alright, so I get up and look around, thinking that there's gonna be some rats around here on this top floor.
You hear the same kind of click, click, click of nails scratching behind the boards of your room. Sound of teeth and squeaking.
A rat.
It does sound like rats. Not just one, it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I think I'm a head out. So I leave.
You open the door to your bedroom and step into the hallway. It is completely inky black. Now you have what's called dark vision. You can see for 60 feet without problem in darkness. And even you cannot see more than a few feet in front of you. You hear. And the clicking of those nails on boards.
Right.
Andrew, you're fucked.
Yeah, I know. This place is haunted now. What the fuck? Haunted. Ghosts to my left, rats to my right. I don't know what to do, man. Shit.
As you stand in the hallway, kind of asking yourself, what the hell am I going to do? You look through the darkness one way, through the darkness another. Do you want to walk down the hallway in either direction, or are you content to just stand in your doorway?
I'm gonna walk down the hallway, trying to remember which way the stairs is.
You're pretty sure you remember they're to the right.
Yeah, so okay, I take a right, I'm walking towards the stairs.
And as you're walking, you hear dripping water, maybe, and crawling of claws, squeaks through the walls. You hear creaking boards underneath your feet, and suddenly they're spongy, almost.
SpongeBob.
Like they're wet. And you look down at your feet and you see they are wet. Dripping wet. And your foot depresses into it like sand, almost. But it's not sand. It's springy and soft.
Soft.
Mm-hmm.
Springy and soft, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Do you want to bend down and see what it is you're standing in?
Kinda, but no. Like, it's one of those things, like, I feel like if I look at it, it's gonna get worse.
Mm-hmm. 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 So what would Omega do?
I do it anyways.
You kind of crouch down and look, and you see that it looks to be skin.
Skin?
Like a rug of flesh that has been cut away and laid at your feet. You hear in the hallway behind you.
Can I, like, run?
You run.
Run out of the...
You take off running. Your footsteps are squelching and slapping against this wet, fleshy material.
Gross.
And you hear the hallway around you explode in chitters and scratching and squeals. And behind you there is a shriek. Getting closer and closer. You run and you run, and you finally feel like you've ran a mile. And
Like, not getting to the stairs? How big is this boat or whatever?
You see that you are still at your door frame.
Oh wait, no, we're into the thing, not the boat, right?
When
Okay,
you look
yes.
behind you, your door is less than a stride away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And on the opposite side of it, looking through the darkness at you, you see a shape that looks to be a woman. A nude woman. Older.
Oh shit.
Very old.
She got saggy titties?
With eyes that are bright yellow and reflecting like a candle flame. Her arms hang down past her knees, and her hands terminate in gruesome-looking claws. Omega, can you make me a wisdom saving throw, please?
Yeah. Hold up.
Do either of us hear this happening?
I'll cut back to you in a second.
Wisdom? It says I don't have anything in wisdom.
You don't!
What the fuck? I'm not a wise man. Damn. I got an 8.
8. You smart, though. Joy and Cautious. You are both awoken by the sound of a bell. Bong, bong. It rings 6 times. And after the 6th ring, you are fully awake and you feel refreshed, well rested, and you hear birds outside chirping. And you're like, wait, there aren't any birds here. And you can lift your window and look through. You actually see that there is someone with a cage outside. A bird cage. It's very large, bigger than a person. And inside it are dozens of sparrows. Little sparrows fluttering around and chittering and making all kinds of racket at one another. And this person seems to be selling the sparrows from a cart to this angular, vicious-looking elven woman that you saw the night before.
So we don't hear what's going on upstairs with Omega?
What happened upstairs? It was a refreshing, quiet, lovely night when you went to sleep.
I feel great.
What do you two do?
Can I peer into the hallway to see if, like, people have woken up?
You open your door and you see that there are other people peeking out of their doors as well. All of the glasses are empty. They're not perfectly clean. They're just empty. There's little remnants and smears of blood in each of the glasses, but they're set back exactly where they were, completely empty of blood, other than what's dried onto the sides. People are kind of coming out of the room and snatching up their glass and cleaning it in the basin of water that's inside each of your rooms. Eventually, some people start to head out to get breakfast, maybe, or to start work.
Yeah.
Do I see what the elven woman is doing with the birds? Like, do I see any more of that?
Once she pays for them, she drags, with the help of this merchant that sold it, drags the birds into the longhouse here and kind of situates them in the central room where the staircase leads upward to the 2nd and 3rd floor, and they just chirp and chitter pleasantly. She throws some seed in with them, this wood elven woman, and she kind of smiles to herself. But then she sees you kind of looking on, and she creases her eyes at you and says, "Shouldn't you be getting to work?"
I say yes, I was just admiring the beautiful birds, and I kind of glance back at the stairs to look for Omega coming down.
You wait 10 minutes, 15, 20, 25. People have come down from the 2nd floor, including the half-orc that you know to be Jack Moon. He comes with people kind of talking into his ear. He has parchments in front of him he's flipping through. He's handing out and speaking orders, and when he passes you, he gives you kind of a serious nod, and he says, Noonday Church. Noonday Church, he says to all the new faces.
Can
But
I
you do not
walk
see
up?
Omega.
Can I walk up the stairs and check on him, or maybe like try and wake him up or knock on the door?
Sure. You go up to the 3rd floor, and you see that it's completely empty here. You see that there is kind of a big pool of dried blood, like a thin layer of dried blood at one part of this hallway. Not near the door that Omega would be sleeping in. That door is actually open in the middle of this hallway. And when you approach very quietly and you peer in, you see that Omega is laying in his bed, face down, with one arm dangling off of the mattress. What would immediately catch your eye is that Omega's pinky and ring finger are gone.
I lost my fingers.
What do you do, Cautious?
Do I know for a fact that he had them before? Like, did I notice that? Okay.
You see that there's strings of congealed blood hanging from the stumps that used to be 2 of his fingers on his left hand.
I want to walk over and shake one of his feet to try and wake him up.
You grab his booted or slippered foot and shake it. He's breathing. The foot retracts. Omega, you wake up from a nightmare. A vicious nightmare that has startled you to your core of this hallway that you could not leave. This woman chewing on you. This terrible, frightening presence. And a tiefling is standing at your feet, kind of looking at you as you reach up to push the hair out of your eyes.
I'm kind of just like confused and lost, so I'm asking Cautious here, what the hell just happened?
You open your mouth and there's something in it.
No.
2 of your own fingers come out of your mouth and hit the ground.
What am I, the clown? What the fuck?
Your pinky and your ring finger of your left hand. There's no pain at all.
Ew.
Cautious, you know how to sew these back on?
Do I know how to heal his fingers?
You can sew them on, sure. You're not sure if it'll take. You don't have that powerful magic here.
So, have I read through the entire book?
Sure.
Did it say anything about the lady that the cult is named after?
No.
Okay.
What it did say is to pay a tithe of blood. But it was all speculative and towards the middle of the book. Like, the fact that people just kind of went in and bloodlet last night kind of caught you off guard, and I imagine it caught many others off guard. So, like, all this seems weird. Obviously. Very, very weird.
I'm gonna ask Omega, did you fill the glass up with blood last night?
No.
Glass? What glass? What blood?
Yeah, what you talking about?
Am I able to kind of understand that the blood is kind of its own sacrifice, and the chanting of Watchful Lady, watch over me and mine is kind of protecting us from maybe what happened to him in his nightmare?
Probably.
Okay, so I want to go under his bed for him and pull out the glass and the...
When you peek beneath his bed, you see a shape there. It almost looks like the shadow of a person. It looks like the shadow of a person with their tongue out, trying to lick up the edge of the bed towards his dangling hand. And it's gone in like a blink. You blink and it's completely gone. You just see a lockbox down there.
Okay, I want to open the lockbox and take out the glass and put his fingers in place of the glass.
When you open the lockbox, it is clean metal, just like yours. But inside, you find a few little rat droppings in there. You pull out the glass, identical to yours in every way. The cloth that surrounds it has been nibbled upon, but otherwise it is perfectly fine too. And you want to put his fingers in the cloth?
Yeah, I do.
In the cloth inside the lockbox? Okay.
Yeah.
Omega, you say, "Can you sew these fingers back on?" And she says, "Yes." And then she puts them into a lockbox under your bed. And hands you a glass.
What the hell are you doing?
I think I'm gonna look at him for a second and kind of say, I think you should cut your losses, so to speak. You messed up. You fucked up, bro. It's time to just accept that you...
I wish I didn't get you that ticket. Fuck you.
And I want
should have left you
to
out there.
explain to him what happened last night on the other floors. Kind of what everybody did and how they bled into the glass. And then I want to tell him that I saw a woman under his bed for a second. That seemed to be going towards his hands before she disappeared.
Omega, this tiefling is clearly insane, who is coming here to help you. She's hiding your fingers from you. She's telling you she saw a woman beneath the bed. Clearly there was just some crazy accident in your night terror that made you bite your fingers off. But how you react to this absolutely fucking brainless tiefling woman that came up here telling you to cut yourself into a glass, I don't know. But your hand does not hurt at all. It's bloody and it's congealed where the fingers are missing, but there's absolutely no pain, even when you touch it. No pain at all.
Can I find someone more capable of pulling my fingers together?
So you kind of get out of bed and pull your fingers out of the lockbox. Sure, yeah.
Can I try and stop him from taking his fingers?
I guess you could slam his fingers in it.
His other fingers?
Yeah.
Can I sit in front of the bed so it's not easy for him to reach towards the lockbox?
So the two of you have this long moment where you're kind of fighting over who's more insane in their reaction to what's happened. Joy, what are you doing in all of this madness?
Can I go check on them?
Sure. You come up the stairs and you pass this square patch on the floor that's like wreathed in little droplets of blood. And you go up to the door and you hear them bickering back and forth. They're like, "Sew my fingers on," says the elven voice. "No, you have to bleed in the glass," says the tiefling voice. And when you peek in, you see that they're in a struggle trying to pull and fumbling out into the floor two bisected fingers from the elven man's hand.
Wow. Can I... Can I mage hand and pick up the fingers?
Sure. So the two of you see the fingers begin to float as an invisible magical hand lifts them up, and takes them to the doorframe where a tiefling woman is standing, your friend Joy.
I'll point at the fingers and I'll look at Omega. Are these your fingers, bro?
Yeah, could you sew them on? This crazy person just won't let me have my fingers. Why are you even here? What'd you even come up here for?
Wait,
Not you. I'm asking her. What'd you even come up here for?
I think I'm trying to figure out if I should make a move to grab his fingers or explain myself. And I try to reason with Joy and completely ignore Omega. And I want to explain that he didn't put the sacrifice outside of his door, and when I came in to find him, he was passed out, and he had bitten off his own fingers during the night, and that I believe it's a direct result of him not pleasing the people that this cult is worshipping, and that if he tries to sew the fingers back on, I think it will be a great sign of disrespect to this kind of demon woman, and that she might try to retaliate even if he does do the sacrifice in the future.
I kind of just look at her confused. I kind of just look at her all confused. I don't know what you're talking about. I still don't know why you're here. She can be disrespectful if she wants. I don't want my fingers.
She can be disrespected. I want my fingers.
Can I try to convince him that she may be right?
Sure. You guys just talk. You don't have to make any rolls or checks or anything. Omega and Nando, by extension, can be just as surly and undispossessed to what you're saying as they wish.
Can I mumble what the Uwu woman told me? Through toil and blood all shall prosper, those who deny the truth shall be... I think we said exiled. I'm not sure. No?
Excised.
Excise? What does that mean?
Cut away, removed.
Oh. Can I mumble that?
Sure.
To him?
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe you. She would have said ooh in between your sentences. So.
Oh, yeah.
You're obviously wrong.
Wait.
Waiting.
Do you know what excised means? Nando?
I know, like, what?
Do you know what that word means?
I didn't hear you.
Yeah, we can barely hear you, Jasmine.
Say, speak up.
Bitch!
Buttercup.
It means having been cut out surgically, sir. After a quick Google, because I am not the brain. And what happened to your little fingers? I say, wiggling around.
Little.
Why did you bite your fingers off?
No, why don't you sew them back on?
I think we can get you prosthetics. I'm sure those exist somewhere. Maybe like a little peg hand Omega. I don't know.
Well, you just give me your fingers then if it's not a big deal.
Can I throw his fingers back at him?
Yeah.
Okay.
You throw the fingers, Omega, you catch the fingers. You now have your own fingers.
Oh, so am I myself. Oh.
I want to strongly advise that you do not.
And I want to
throw the
strongly
fingers back
advise you to
on.
leave.
Oh my gosh.
Omega, you kind of push them out of your room and close the door. There's no lock on anything other than the lockbox. And when you open the desk, this little writing desk, you see that there's little odds and ends inside. There's quills, a small little ink stone that you rub against like a plate with water in it to make ink to write with.
Right.
And needle, thread, gauze, little pair of tweezers, and some shears for cutting your own hair. Those big metal ones that you have to squeeze to make them snip, 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 like you would cut wool from a sheep.
Mm-hmm.
All
hope
that's
you're not-
inside the desk drawer, along with a couple pieces of parchment.
I hope you weren't left-handed, Nando.
Wait, which hand was it on?
It was your left hand. I don't know how much that
Left
would bother you.
Now I'm right-handed.
Lucky.
I kind of like ponder over what that crazy person was just telling me. As annoying as she was, it makes me pause and hesitate.
As you're sewing your fingers back on, I'll need you to make a medicine check, please. That's
Medicine.
That's wisdom 2. You have a +0 to medicine, so give it a shot.
Yeah, it was 17.
Hey, 17's not bad. You think that you've made some okay sutures here. It's going to be difficult to kind of manage this without it getting infected or anything. None of it hurt. The needle, the thread, pushing the fingers to get, none of that hurt at all. And once you have it sewed on, you can wrap it with gauze or cloth and pretty much have your day. It takes a little bit of time to do that one-handed on yourself, I would imagine. So we'll say that it's been about an hour since you woke up. But you think that you have it more or less splinted and wrapped to where you won't bend them or anything like that.
Alright, so I got my left hand now.
The three of you do whatever the hell it is you're doing for the morning. But eventually people come by and kind of pressure you to start working. Everyone seems to be dropping everything they're doing mid-morning to go work. Cut trees, make timber, sew, to thatch roofs, take care of animals. People all seem to have a job, and it's like they're falling in rhythm with each other in a way that's almost alien to you. It's like they know what the island needs them to do even before they really know what jobs are waiting for them. Eventually, the three of you find some work to do until midday, when 12 bells ring and everyone starts to head toward the church. Most of the town of Heathbourne Island stays outside of the church. Only the 12 of you that did not have family are brought inside. You see Jack Moon standing at the pew, or at the podium, at the front of this gargantuan church. And next to him is this elven woman who, through rumor and just chit-chat throughout the day, you have found that her name is Varana Marrow, like bone marrow. Varana Marrow. She is his basically right-hand man, his lieutenant. She does almost all of the work around here that Jack needs done with someone that they trust. Allegedly, they've known each other for years and years. She is considered one of the founders of this island, of which there were 3. Jack, Varana, and their companion, who has not been seen in some time, presumed dead when they first found the island. You're all brought into the church and to the front pews and a dais. And Jack takes a long moment and looks over all of you before he speaks. And he says, "We children, we must watch and listen. Children of the Watchful Lady. We must toil, we must sacrifice. We, all of us, are a part of this island. We, all of us, are one with her. The lady watches over us." Everyone in the crowd mumbles, "The lady watches over us." And you can either not do it or kind of catch on at the end. But again, it's this moment where everyone seems to be gelling and connected, but the three of you kind of aren't. And it stands out to you. Jack eventually, after he gives this short little speech and quotes some passages from the book, he says, "It has come to my attention that there are some of you whose faith is still on rocky shores." And almost like they're extensions of this conversation, the three of you find yourselves kind of pushed to the front, along with 4 others. The crowd behind you seems to be almost as surprised as you are to have the 7 of you kind of pushed up there to the front of this room, in front of the pews, right in front of the podium where Jack is standing. Things seem strange, pressing in on all sides, like you've been put into a car that's too packed with people, and you're uncomfortable in every direction, almost. Varana has this wicked-looking knife in her hand, and she's moving it back and forth in her palm, where it seems like it's been comfortable for years. And Jack continues, "Word has reached me there's a traitor in our midst. One of you who doesn't belong, one of you who took what was not yours to get here. I will have it out," he says as he kind of walks down the steps. The 3 of you are all the way to one side of the room, and when he comes down the steps, he's on the opposite side from you. He looks down at one of these people, and he says, "The staunchest among us." And he pauses. And the person on his knees, looking up, like petrified with fear, he says, "Shall be as the weakest." Some quote from the book. And Jack nods and touches him on the head very gently, and this smile kind of creases across his face. The 3 of you have a quick moment where eyes are not fixated on you. Instead, they're fixated on Jack. What do the 3 of you do?
I give cautious look.
I want to step closest to him from the 3 of us. So I want to position myself on the side that's closest to him because I'm more comfortable with religion and worshiping at temples, and try and maybe, if he comes over towards us, take the lead. And I want to motion towards them to kind of bow their heads and look unsuspecting
So you're pulling a mom at church with kids, like,
Yeah, actually, yeah, exactly.
put up your Game Boy. Play. Okay. Omega, do you follow along with what your friend Cautious is suggesting you do?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. He goes down the row until he gets to the fourth person, the one right next to you, Cautious. And he says, "Before the end can take." And the man springs at him, "Ah!" with a scream, and grabs Jack around the waist and tries to pin him to the ground. The entire room blows up. People are running, people are screaming, there are fists flying, there are people stabbing with weapons and cudgels. Ah! And you see this man draw a dagger as if to stab Jack in the chest. What do the three of you do?
Oh god.
I want to jump forward very quickly and try to protect him from getting stabbed.
What's Joy doing? Jasmine!
I'm chilling.
Chilling. Omega.
Never mind.
I push Cautious in front.
Okay.
So, there's this moment where people are screaming and trying to push others out of the way to come and protect Jack. You see Verana doesn't move. So Omega and Joy, the two of you, please make me insight checks.
I'm chilling like Verana over here. We know what's up. I don't even know.
I rolled an 11.
And you have another +0.
Yeah.
Alright, what about Joy?
Unfortunate.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Insight
I'm
check.
rolling insight?
Insight check. What'd you roll?
Let me... Insight... 19.
19. Omega, you've kind of blended yourself into the crowd that's trying to get out of the way and not impede whatever's happening. You shove Cautious towards this melee that's broken out. But Joy, you have a quick moment to size up Verana. Verana looks almost pleased for just a sharp little moment. And then it kind of dawns on her what's happening, and she springs into action, but far slower than she should have, considering who she's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Cautious, I would like you to roll initiative for me, please. Your initiative is at the top middle of your sheet, and you're going to be opposed by the initiative of this attacker.
It's 17.
The attacker rolled a 15. So you act first. What would you like to do to try and stop this attacker from plunging this knife into Jack's chest?
I want to take the book and I want to place it on his chest where he's aiming the knife to try and get the knife stuck in the book so he can't hurt him.
Oh, that's great. I love it. So you manage to spring forward and you dive almost. It feels almost like someone shoved you, but it just must be your own adrenaline pumping.
I wonder why.
You dive towards Jack and slam this book down on his chest, and right next to your own fingers, this knife comes down and sticks into the leather and the parchment, harmlessly on Jack's chest. And it's about that time that the entire room surrounds him and drags him away. They beat him mercilessly as they do so. there's a moment, and you see Jack has his hand on the back of his head. There's blood where he hit the step when he was toppled over. Verana comes forward, and Jack gives her a withering glare that makes her back up. He looks at you, cautious, and holds out a hand to help you up off the floor from where you kind of landed on your knees to put the book on his chest. And when he picks you up and pulls you up to standing, he gives you a long look in the eyes as well. And he says, "The lady sent you to watch over me today. You're staying at the Longhouse, right?"
Yes.
He turns to Verana and he says, "Get her a cabin." Verana kind of gives you a little bit of a icy glare and says, "I'm sure we can find something that will work." He gives you another nod and he says, "I will talk to you after. Thank you, sister." And he follows the crowd as they drag this man from the church. Things get pretty brutal with what happens to him amid this crowd until Jack approaches and they part like water. He's still holding this gash on the back of his head closed, and the blood is seeping through his fingers and down his shoulder. But when he comes up, he says, "Pick him up. Carry him to the workshop." And the few people that grab him and pick him up nod knowingly and walk back behind the church to this boxy building that juts straight out of the ground like it may lead deeper, maybe into a mine or something like that. The crowd congregates around you, cautious. And they give you firm pats on the shoulders. Some of them slip you little trinkets, like a little vial full of crystal clear water taken from on the island. Someone offers you their own book to trade it for this one that's been marred. Others say, no, you need to keep it. You must. It's yours. There's this big hullabaloo that kind of leaves you reeling. You're celebrated almost for this long moment as something of a hero in this situation. Joy and Omega, the two of you are kind of left to your own devices here, but you can see being pulled along outside of the church. You see through the windows this man being taken back into this boxy building behind the church, the door closed behind him, and a lock locking into place, locking this wounded assassin, Jack, Verana, and two others inside this no bigger than 20-foot building. For brevity's sake, we skip forward in the day. The three of you find yourselves more work to do, more people to speak to, more questions to ask and have answered. Dinner comes and goes, but during the dinner conversation, people seem to open up more and more to the three of you, seeing that you've passed this test even though you were never tested. I would like each of you to explain to me how you are looking through conversation, through subterfuge, through espionage. How are you trying to find Halleck here on the island? Everyone you've talked to has never heard of him.
What, Jasmine?
I don't know, Nando.
Yeah, what does Omega do? How is Omega trying to track him down?
I was gonna do whatever she did.
Yeah, see? Is there a way...
So an easier way to frame this so that you can kind of know how to bounce off of it, give a perusal to your skills while you have a moment and figure out where would your character feel the most comfortable. For example, Omega has a very high sleight of hand and stealth. He's good at pilfering things and good at going unnoticed. He's also very good at history. He's fairly smart, all things considered. So the idea that he would be trying to connect with people on how the island works would make sense. Sneaking away from dinner to go and investigate other places makes sense. So just kind of try to imagine how your character would look for this information and then come back to me.
Is a performing allowed?
Mm-hmm.
When we eat at night, is it in like a dining hall type thing?
It's in a very large feast hall, yes. It's in this communal building where you're all staying. The bottom floor is actually, there's 15 rooms in the front, all in a straight line in one big long hallway. And behind that is the big dining area. This gargantuan place, it can seat maybe 80 or 90 people, where anyone on the island can come and eat communally. And people from their own houses bring in food that they've prepared and add it to this gigantic potluck where everyone eats.
Can I play on my little lute?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe during that time,
Mm-hmm. So are you attempting to play in order to garner sympathy, make friends? Are you trying to make money? What's your goal for performing here?
I guess make friends.
So you want people to kind of like, oh, did you know, blah, 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 gossip? Hear me out. You're so good with the loot. I love it. So go ahead and roll me a performance check, please.
17.
17 is pretty good. You play your lute, and you play a song called, I don't know, Get Back by Ludacris on the lute. Get back, motherfucker, you don't know me like that. People seem to love it. And through the course of the meal, a lot of people come to you and say that they're glad to have some lightness and some entertainment here on the island. One of them says that they have not heard such fantastic music since their brother went missing. And if you kind of pry into that, they explain their brother was a performer, just like you. He actually played the sitar, like a lap guitar. And he was not very well loved. He's something of a drug addict, and he brought drugs to the island, which put him on the outs with most of the people here. But one day, he apparently just walked out of the community here and deeper into the island, saying that he wanted to go to the opposite shore and make his way home, swim if he had to, is what he said. But he actually never came back from that side of the island. And ever since, people don't really go over there anymore. In fact, there's a fence built between here and there, probably 8-9 feet high, that cuts through all the trees across the island. No one's really sure why that side of the island is avoided, but people are told never to go there. So everyone just assumes that it's dangerous. Maybe something lives over there that's dangerous as well.
I see.
Omega, your performance is terrible, so you're not going to be playing the lyre. What are you doing?
Can I just try to make some money and steal it by stealing?
Okay. So a lot of the people here don't have very much in the way of gold wealth, like actual coin purses and shit like that.
Can I steal Jasmine's loot?
No, because she currently has it in her hands.
Damn it.
But What you do know is that people who do come to the island apparently forego all of their gold, and it is taken to the workshop.
No shit. Can I go to the workshop?
Sure. This sounds like it would be a stealth check from you to sneak out of here during dinner and to the workshop.
You're gonna get yourself killed.
I got a 19. Let's go. Plus
24.
24. Yeah. Sweet.
Very, very good. You do sneak out, and no one seems to notice at all. You can sneak all the way back to the church. It's dark now. Work is all the way until dark, sundown. And you still have a few hours before 12th bell when everyone absolutely has to be in their rooms. When you get to the workshop, you see there are no windows in this place, but there are little gaps in the boards here, like this building is very, very old. And seeping through these gaps, you see little strands of light that illuminate nearby. The door is bolted and locked. There are no windows, so you think that you would have to jimmy the lock open. You do have thieves' tools, however. So, if you would like to open the lock, I would like you to roll a dexterity check. So you see on the top left corner of your page, it says dexterity +3. Roll me a d20, add that +3, and then right next to it, towards the middle of the page...
saving throws?
Nope. Right above the saving throws, it says proficiency bonus.
Okay.
So you're going to be adding +5 to this roll. Naturally, you are 3 gifted, and you've also had some training to make it a +5.
I rolled a 12.
12 total?
No, I rolled a 12, so then +5, 17.
17. That is also a very good check. It takes you a little bit of finagling with the tools that you have at your disposal, but eventually you click the lock open and push the bar back and swing the door wide. Inside the workshop, it is almost completely empty. There are tools on the walls, on little pegboards. There are little things that are being built, like another lockbox is being bolted together on one of the little workstations in here. There's an overhead lamp that's already lit, a brazier that hangs over your head and throws out a bunch of light. But it's oddly empty. Roll me a perception check, Nomega.
Perception? Okay. Got a 10. I roll a 10, and my perception is 2. So 12. Yeah.
A 12, you see that there is blood on the floor here from where that man was probably dragged in earlier in the day.
Right.
The trail of blood just ends halfway on the floor. When you kind of look at it a little bit more and you investigate more thoroughly, you think that the floor opens and leads down. Would you like to open it?
Yeah, why not?
You can pull a pry bar out of your little tool belt and all that good stuff and open it. It's not that hard to do. And when you do, the scene is the camera facing up at the floor where it opens, and you peer down inside. You see that it's a ladder that leads down about 30 feet, and next to the ladder is a dumbwaiter. The dumbwaiter has a spool that comes up just underneath the floor. If you wanted to raise it or lower it, you could do it from up here and lower yourself down on the dumbwaiter. You think that's probably how they lowered the man down, since he was so injured he couldn't take the ladder. The dumbwaiter is currently all the way at the bottom.
Okay, so I can lower myself down?
You can raise the dumbwaiter, step into it, and lower yourself down, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do that.
As you do, you hear again the... coming
not
from
this
all
again.
over. You lower yourself a little quicker, all the way until you get to the bottom. There's a lot of water down here in these hand-carved tunnels. But after about 20 feet, the tunnels don't look hand-carved anymore. They look naturally formed, but oddly symmetrical, oddly circular. And whimpering inside a cell down here, an iron-barred cell, you see a man. The man who attacked earlier. It looks like he's strung up to the wall. His wrists are shackled, his legs are tied together, and hanging from his legs is a weight, making his arms stretch and stretch uncomfortably high, and his right arm is dislocated. He's whimpering, borderline passed out inside of this cell, and the tunnel leads further and further and further away than you could imagine. Cut back to Joy and Cautious. Bang, 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 bang. Someone hits a pan with a soup tureen. Stands up on one of the tables here in this hall. It appears to be Jack Moon himself. He's got a bandage on the back of his shaven head, and he's wearing new clothes that aren't covered in blood. And he says, "Children of the Watchful Lady, you know what you are supposed to do here. You know the truth of things. It is in the teachings," he says. "But I have heard whispers that cause me great discomfort. There are no rats on Heathbourne Island. You have not heard them. You have not seen them. There are no rats on this island. Those who say otherwise are liars, and here to sow discord among us. Do not listen to them. Tell us of these rumors they spread, and we will see that they are excised." Excised, people say. "The lady watches over us, and she has told me there are no rats on Heathbourne Island." Everything gets very, very quiet as he's standing up there. He steps down onto the bench next to the table, and before he steps off onto the floor, he stops and says, "I hope you all have a great dinner. Get some rest. We toil further tomorrow." And people have that big smile on their face, that big happy, they're needed, they're paid, they're fed, they're comfortable. That smile. He cuts back through the crowd until he finds you, Cautious. And he says, "Sister, I hope the food has been agreeable." It actually has been. The food here is actually very, very well made, very fresh.
I want to say thank you for a fantastic welcome. This first day has been more than I could have ever hoped, and the food is delightful.
He nods, and he says, "I fear I have misspoke to you. I fear that I am busy tonight, but I would hope that we could speak in earnest and in private sometime tomorrow, that I can better know my Savior. Is that agreeable, my sister?"
Yes, of course. Anytime that he's free.
He smiles and nods, and he says, "Please forgive me with the attempt on my life, it seems that some of our other arrangements need to be pushed along to their destination before I can continue to spread the good word and teach you newcomers our way of life. I will see to it tonight, that way I can get back to my toil tomorrow. He sits on the bench beside you, and he says to you and Joy, who is actually sitting nearby having freshly done playing, he says, "One story that you will hear, and I will share now before anything else transpires, is how this place came to be. I was a convict, supposedly to be dead, hung by the neck until my life faded. Varana," he reaches over and touches her hip. She's standing within arm's reach of him pretty much at all times. But she's not paying much attention. She's staring off into the middle distance. "Varana was with me, along with our friend Nahim. We were to be transported to an island near here, killed and thrown to the gulls. But instead, a storm dashed the ship against the rocks. Everyone aboard died but us, we three. The cage that was supposed to be our undoing saved our lives. And I saw her that morning in the mists on this island. Not even a leaf grew then. I saw the Watchful Lady." And he's staring off into the middle distance himself now. And he says, "Pristine, beautiful, white porcelain skin. I had never seen anything like her ever in my life, nor had my fellows. She gave this to us. She told me what I put in her teachings. We spoke for days, weeks, years maybe. The trees they grew. Everything you see grew here, and gave us a life. Fashioned for us a way back to the mainland. Gave us leather, trees to make paper, that we could spread her teachings to more. 5 years." He gestures around. "All of this in 5 years. In 5 years before I shipwrecked here, I had done nothing. And now, all of this." And he gives a pleasing smile. "We owe to the Watchful Lady. All of this." And he smiles. And he says, "I will teach the rest of the story to all of you when the time comes. But I figured that might be a good taste for now." And he pats the top of the table with his thick, calloused hand and says, "Please, finish your meal, enjoy yourselves, and sleep well. May we toil tomorrow." And he turns with Varana in tow and leaves. Omega.
Yes.
There's a moment where you're trying to decide what to do here in this dark, abandoned place, these mines beneath the island. You see there's a cell like the one this assassin is hanging in. Behind you, locked and barred, just like his cell, but inside it, paintings, chests, vases, all these ornamental, artistic things. It seems like this is some kind of storeroom back here. some kind of refuge for things from a life that's been abandoned. It's brimming with wealth. And just as your mouth starts to salivate and you start to fiddle at your hip for your tools, you hear footsteps approaching. What do you do?
I have, like, a weapon.
Yeah, you have your weapons.
Can I, like, draw it just to, like, be cautious? Like, be prepared?
Would you like
Just
to
in
stand
case.
out in the open? Would you like to hide? Would you like...
I would like to hide. I would like to have my weapon in my hand, but also, like, hide.
So ready yourself and hide. Go ahead and roll
Yeah.
me a stealth check.
Alright, I got it. Got a 15, then stealth is +5, so 20.
Very good. You hide among the rubble down here, the discarded boulders and collapsed passageways. And through the darkness, you see a hulking figure. It's tall, taller than most humans. It still fits in the tunnel, maybe 8 feet. It's huge and muscular, and it stomps through this ankle-deep water. When it gets closer, you can smell blood from it. Its head is covered in what looks to be a burlap sack, dripping with blood. There's a single hole where one eye peers out. The eye is the size of a fist. It's huge and bright, gleaming blue, even in the darkness down here. It says, and it wrenches the bars open of this prison. The assassin dangling there can barely breathe. Its shoulder dislocated and it's wheezing. And this thing that pushes its way into his cell plucks him from the wall like an apple, like he's not heavy at all, just picks him up and puts him on his shoulder. And when the assassin writhes and wiggles, he hits this huge thing in the back of the head with his elbow. This hulking creature lifts him gently from his shoulder and cracks his head on the wall. The assassin goes completely limp and is put back on his shoulder, parts of his head dashed against the stone. The hulking figure walks further down into the tunnels, back into the darkness. I'm imagining there's a moment where you don't know what the fuck just happened. Like, you're trying to process what you just saw. And you hear them again, Omega. And when you peer back the way that you came from the opening with the dumbwaiter and the ladder, there's a ripple of water, like a little wave washing up onto the beach in the sludge down here at your feet. Except it's not water. It's rats. Thousands and thousands of rats filling this tunnel to waist height, rushing towards you like a wave of water. Joy and Cautious, the two of you come out of this feast house for a nightly little stroll before the bells ring, probably looking for your friend Omega, who went missing. Only you seem to notice that he's gone. A cart wheels up into the middle of town, and inside the cart are 3 people. There is a tabaxi woman, a cat person, dressed in finery, purple and gold. She looks emaciated and gaunt. There is a human man who seems to be old, maybe in his 50s or 60s, who looks regal and scholarly. And both of you immediately recognize Halleck, the half-elf noble you have come here to find. The cage on all sides is exposed through slots, and through one of the slots, the blunted end of a spear is thrust by one of these cultists and hits Halleck in the stomach. People are looking out of the windows and over their balconies down into this central courtyard where this cart has rolled up with these people on the back. Verana climbs atop the outside of this cart hanging from the bars, and she cries out, "I know there are more traitors in our midst. I know that you have come for one of these sheep. You will free yourself or watch them die in torment. Come forward and spare their suffering. You have until tomorrow night. Then pieces of them will start to come off." She slaps the side of the carriage, this cart, and the driver pulls it away. It goes across the cobbles into the forest of the island, so far away that you can no longer see it. And that's where we're going to have to end. It's 7 o'clock. Are we okay, gang? Are we all right?
I'm worried about my fingers again.
Fuck your
My fingers!
Just take the L.
Just take the
Take
L.
the L.
It's just some fingies. It'll be fine.
Your thingies.
So,
Okay.
so I know that how we played this session was a little me heavy, but I wanted everyone to have little moments where they could pitch in and kind of get the feel for the game and where to look on the sheet, instead of me just kind of putting you all in a room together and waiting for 2 hours while you decide what to do. Was it fun? Did you guys have a fun session, or was it a little too grindy for anybody?
I did.
I had fun.
It's hard to gauge when I can't see anybody's face, because I'm like, I'm sure Nando's asleep.
I'm not asleep.
I bet you he's playing a game right now. He's in Valorant. Like, yeah, okay. Where are my fingers?
Nah. My finger.
My fingers. But yeah, thanks for playing. I did record this, and it's part of my Patreon.